looking around, trying to find out what had happened, and they discovered that a character out of one of my novels named Jack Sarfatti, who manifested here this morning. Some of you may have seen him. He was here in 3D. We do great things with holograms these days. He was here and he started reading a bit of a paper. Jack Sarfatti has a patent disclosure filed. He's working on a faster-than-light transmission system. This contradicts special relativity, so a lot of physicists say it's impossible. But it's based on Bell's theorem, which says that all quantum systems, no matter how distant from each other, if once in contact, remain in contact. And we know that everything was all in contact at the point of the Big Bang, or the last Big Bang, as the case may be. So everything is still in contact. Bell's theorem is sometimes referred to as the quantum inseparability principle, which tells us that I'm here because you're here, and Hyatt is here because a bear coughed at the North Pole and a bottle of ketchup fell off a fire escape in New York 3 hours ago because Christopher Columbus had lice in his drawers, and 23 controls everything, and all sorts of mysterious things like that are going on because it's all connected. This is what Jung referred to as the synchronicity principle. And it's, in physics, it's known as Bell's theorem. Everything is connected with everything else. Space and time are totally delusory, as Immanuel Kant figured out with remorseless Germanic logic, step by step. And as other people have found out by simply ingesting funny chemicals. The whole appearance of the space-time three-dimensional universe is totally an epiphenomenon, and behind it is the realm of hidden variables which are eternal. And this is what Bell's theorem is manifesting. And Sarfatti actually, while rejected as a crank by many, went ahead and developed his faster-than-light communication system, not quite realizing what he was doing. And a lot of other physicists who were in on it didn't quite realize what they were doing. But once they had faster-than-light communication, everything was in contact with everything. The primordial unity appeared, and everybody was suddenly talking to their grandparents and having conversations with reptiles they were descended from, who lived millions of years ago. And they were traveling to a galaxy a long time ago, far, far away, where Luke Skywalker was having a terrible battle with his own father, right out of Freud's interpretation of dreams. And it was all happening at once. And it took the human race nearly 8 years to get used to that situation. But by 1990, everybody was accustomed to realizing that we're not here now, we're everywhere, everywhen. And therefore, all limitations were transcended. And the goal of the Illuminati was finally achieved, and people went around saying, Jesus, I never thought the physicists were going to do it first. So that's from the point of view of 2002, a backward look at the physics of the 1980s. That's in one possible universe. I don't vouch for all possible universes. Are there any more questions? Does anybody want to throw tomatoes anymore? Yes?
What motivated you to first write the trilogy, the Illuminati trilogy?
Well,
Why did you get interested?
that is the whole point of the exercise I was asking everybody to try. Why are you here today? If I try to explain what motivated the Illuminatus trilogy, I got to go back to weird things like I started with talking about my marriage, where I swore my faith in the Shangha without knowing what the Shangha was. Or even weirder things like that. As per example, in 1942, when I was 10 years old, my mother and a Russian woman named Olga Libatov sat down with an Ouija board and started pushing the thing around. I forget the name of the thing. Any occultists in the audience who know that?
Planchette.
The planchette. They started pushing the planchette around. They were asking it this and that and the other. And I spoke up and I said, ask it when the war is going to end. So they asked it when the war was going to end, and it said August 14th, 1945. And that absolutely astonished me because I was 10 years old and I believed what I heard on the radio. And everybody was saying on the radio that we were going to beat the Germans and the Japanese in about 6 months, and the boys would be home by Christmas and all that. There were a lot of professional optimists in the Office of War Information in those days. I was astonished at the thought it might last until 1945, so I made a note of that date, August 14th, 1945. And on that date, the peace treaty was signed by General MacArthur and the Japanese government on board the battleship Missouri. And the Ouija board had been right. And I fortunately had the benefit of going to a scientific institution called Brooklyn Polytechnic Institute, where I was supposed to major in electrical engineering, but I frittered away my time taking all the courses on the weird aspects of physics and mathematics, and I encountered Carl Sagan-type mentalities who already existed then, and they explained to me, you see, there were several million people asking Ouija boards when the war was going to end, and the Ouija boards gave several million different answers, and just by sheer coincidence, you were in the room where the right answer came up, and there's nothing spooky about it at all. And I thought, gee, that's wonderful. There's nothing spooky about it at all. It was just sheer coincidence. And then coincidences like that kept on happening. And I wrote the Illuminati trilogy. But that's only part of the answer. You got to go back to the creation of the universe. You got to go back to my grandfather who got out of Austria to avoid the draft. If they hadn't had a draft, he wouldn't have left the country, and if he hadn't left the country, I wouldn't be here now. You got to go back to my great-grandfather who left Ireland because of the potato famine of the 1840s, and so on and so forth. And that's where the disappearing donkey went.
Well, it just seemed to me it took great discipline to really do all the research and the thinking and it just seems to me it takes an awful lot of discipline to put something like that together.
No, it takes a great deal more discipline to refrain from writing certain things. True?
Rodin said the way to make a statue is you keep cutting at the marble till you get rid of all that you don't need.
And then stop. Except most art